Coffee Monday is more than a podcast. It's a movement to reshape the way we approach Mondays and the week ahead. It's about embracing the reality that work doesn't have to dominate our lives. It's about finding that sweet spot where passion, purpose, and a cup of motivation connect. Filmed and recorded in California's Central Valley, join me, your host, Ray Pardini-Matson, as I invite thriving professionals to share their stories of how they're crafting a life that's both vibrant and balanced. Welcome back to Coffee Monday. Today, we're running it back with a guest who was such a big hit the first time, we had to have her back again. Jenny Wright, PA and women's holistic hormone and gut health practitioner and founder of Wright Wellness. The last time Jenny was here, we dove into hormone health, uncovering the connections between our bodies, stress, and overall well-being. But if you know Jenny, you know her expertise doesn't stop there. Since our last conversation, she's been busy growing her practice, launching her annual wellness plans, and opening a new office. She's making big moves. And today, as we spring into a new season, we're shifting our focus to gut health. We'll unpack our gut influences, everything from hormones to inflammation, the biggest myths about gut health, and actionable steps to reset our system. Plus, Jenny's sharing tips on managing stress, regulating an inflammatory diet, and the latest trends she's excited about in functional medicine. Ladies, if you're looking for a fresh start for your health this season, look no further. This episode is packed with insights you won't want to miss. Let's get into it. Jenny, I'm happy to have you back.
So happy to be back.
So Frank Delana, who has a podcast, Bring the Juice, locally.
Yeah.
He and I have connected, just about all things podcast events. And I was like, and he said something the other day, like, run it back. That's what it means to have a guest come back for the second time. So we're running it back. I felt like we had so much to talk about the first time.
Yeah, it went quick too.
It did.
Yeah, I remember recording and stopping. Oh my gosh, it's already been over an hour. So
right?
Yeah.
Time flies and you're having fun, have a lot to say.
Yep.
So part 2 today.
More today.
The first episode, which I will link and reference in our show notes, we covered a lot of the basics. We covered a lot of the general as to why you got into this, sort of what it entails, kind of the full scope, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like we talked a lot about hormone health, which I think a lot of what we're going to talk about today naturally goes back to that, don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
But today the goal is to kind of catch people up on what you've been up to the last year, some updates to Wright Wellness, and then kind of do a little bit more of a focus on gut health.
Yeah.
Does that sound good?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Dive in.
So let's start. First, we're neighbors now, which I'm very happy
I
about.
am right around the corner.
So fun.
Still got to walk over to my office.
Literally.
You got to stop driving.
It's actually embarrassing. And I need to get my steps in.
Yeah, I got to call you out.
Got to call me out. If anybody did, it would be you. No, literally, when I put it into my navigation, my phone was like, yeah, walk here. Why are you driving? Yes. So you have an office now, which is fun.
I do, and it's so great. I love being in person. It just, I don't know, I crave that connection with my clients, and I think it helps build a little bit more trust, and I get to really see more of my client too. There's a lot of intuition that comes out when you're analyzing someone's symptoms and the way they talk, the way they move, little subtleties, and seeing those things in person can really help give you the full picture when trying to help somebody's health.
I bet, especially in your field, right?
Yeah.
So do you do consults in person too now?
I can, yeah. I actually did one the other day. She preferred in person, and that works great for me.
I think to your point, you feel the vibe, right? You feel the energy. You feel, like you said, the intuitive sort of is this going to be a good fit, or is this what she needs, and sort of go from there. That's great.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then you also do Zoom if they need to, right?
Yeah. So I have a few clients who are, I only work in California now, and we can talk about my business structure and everything now versus how it was. But I am using my PA license for this, so it's only in California. But I have plenty of people all over California, and I do offer the virtual visits for them still.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. So let's talk about that. I think sometimes in starting a new business, even if it is in a different field, in your case, sort of medical, holistic health, you kind of have to, I always equate it to the whole analogy of like, live in the house for a little bit,
Yeah.
see the tweaks that you want to make,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, that is very accurate.
So you
Because
lived in the house for a little
yeah,
bit and made
2
the, and
years.
yeah. So
Yeah.
let's talk about that. Kind of some structural changes that you've made.
Yeah. So, when I left medicine in the time post COVID, where I was doing a lot of counseling, I was doing a lot of virtual visits, there wasn't a lot of hands on.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, I can do this from home. And then, I think working from home that time, you start craving more connection and that. But when I initially put it together, I realized that I only had to work in this health coach capacity. And I wanted to launch something that could reach a lot of women all at the
Mm-hmm.
same time. So that's why I started that 8-week hormone balancing program, to try to get as many women educated as possible about their own
Mm-hmm.
body and hormones, and then kind of working one on one with them. But then I lived with that for a couple years. It wasn't everything that I wanted it to be, and I felt like I was missing that connection with women. And instead of making these more broad generalizations, I realized I wanted to really tailor it more specifically, and work more. I really liked the individual one-on-one sessions a lot more than the group teaching
I could
setting.
see that.
Yeah,
I mean, there's benefits to both, right? Like
right.
in going through your 8-week program, I thought it was cool to see some familiar faces, some not, sort of
Hmm.
like be able to connect on similarities, right? But I could
Yeah.
totally see that. I feel like one on one, you get to almost take like a deeper dive, right?
Yeah, a lot deeper dive and the follow up.
Mm-hmm.
So I lost a lot of women to follow up in those 2 years. They'd pay
Mm.
for the package up front, and then, or, just pay for the 8-week program, but then they wouldn't schedule their one on ones, or then they would even drop off and not attend the Zooms that were there. And I
Yeah,
felt like I
right?
was wasting people's money. I didn't want them to invest in something that they didn't take seriously. So now I've changed a lot.
Yeah.
So I have jumped back into the medical side. I have my supervising physician on board, and I am practicing with my PA license, so I can do prescriptions and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, I am offering only annual packages. So I really want people to take this seriously. I want
Mm-hmm.
people to invest in time. For one, you need to invest the time in yourself.
I could not stress that enough.
Hmm.
I agree with you because I think that the women that I've talked to over the years that I've referred to you or just talked about how you work in your services, I tell them, like, you have to be ready to commit
Hmm.
to actually doing what you say.
Yeah, and I'm honest in the
You know?
consults too.
Right?
I can tell if people are like they just want a quick solution, or
Mm-hmm.
and it's unfortunate, but I think there are a lot of people who have more of a victim mentality about their health, and like, why is this happening to me? And they're not ready to take responsibility and make the changes for their health. So that's something I kind of screen
It's
for and
so
who I
true. And
select
you
as
know, in
clients.
that consult, like you're
Yeah.
very honest, very transparent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so the annual plan in theory, talk through that. Talk through specifics of what that looks like.
Yeah, so I have 3 different options based on what your focus is. It's all whole health. So I
Mm-hmm.
do have the whole health optimization package, and I have a gut optimization package, and then I have the hormone
Mm-hmm.
optimization package. And while they're each kind of geared towards a specific issue, they are
Mm-hmm.
all whole health packages. So
Mm-hmm.
it just differentiates which labs are included in them. So in the whole health, we do the Dutch test and the GI map, which is a test for gut health.
Mm-hmm.
The hormone is just the Dutch test, and then the gut health is just the GI map. But I also do extensive blood work as well with all 3 of the packages. The blood work's the same.
Mm-hmm.
And I do add, extra tests here and there, just depending on individuals. But I have my basic kind of comprehensive lab work. So that's all ordered at that initial intake visit.
Mm-hmm.
Once I collect all the data, not just test data, I like to know the history of my client is hugely important to
Yeah.
know kind of like the antecedents involved in creating the disease that we're working with
Mm-hmm.
now. There's so much important information in your health history that might not even seem important to you that I'm like, oh, I see here you had mercury fillings, or, it could be any
Yes.
little subtle thing from your past, or, oh, you had ear infections a lot as a kid. that is huge in how that sets up your gut microbiome because you're taking antibiotics constantly as a kid. All these seemingly unimportant things go into my intake forms, and I take that and extensive lab work. I mean, we're talking like pages and pages of lab results that I'm reviewing. And I think my intake form is like 17 pages long too.
Dang.
So it's a lot of data
Which
review.
is so refreshing. Like, wow. To say you're thorough is an understatement.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's so amazing because you don't always get that when you go to a specialist or even sometimes when you go to your GP or OB. You know, all types of care, amazing, whatever path you decide. But I just felt like you were so thorough.
Yeah. And it's nice for me to finally be able to have the time and the resources to be thorough. Because when you are working in a traditional practice, you have 15 minutes per patient. That's like nothing.
And then when do you, like, silly question, when do you, like, do their paperwork? Like, let's say you need to call on a prescription, or I guess you have staff to help you, or
No, it's
you
all
do?
me. Yeah.
Wow.
It's all me. So everything's electronic. I have a really good practice software that I use, and everything goes through there. There was a lot of back work. I had to set up a lot of automations from summer last. So this all kind of started summer of last year. I started transitioning the business structure and set up as many automations as I could, set up my flow, all those things in the software so that January I could just hit the ground running. So yeah, a lot of back work there, but I can do it, yeah.
But I think it's great that you are so thorough, that not only are you doing all these tests, but I remember when we worked together, even in the 8-week program, you were like taking a look at other doctors' labs to just kind of like assess, which is really great. So refreshing.
The more you know, it's all, you're a whole picture of everything that you've done and what's happened to you over the course of your entire lifetime, traumas and everything included there. So after we, review all the data, then we get together and do kind of a comprehensive review of your labs, your intake forms, and I put together protocols. And I can start preliminary protocols before I get all the data because it can take some time, depending on when you are able to test, how quickly you can get it done. It can be like 2 months before we really get started. So I'm able to have enough information at that first intake visit to set up a preliminary protocol, if I think it's necessary. But that usually comes after the comprehensive. I set up very, very specific, tailored, personalized.
Okay, so I want to get into that, but prior to getting into that, we talked about in your first episode the Dutch test. So we won't go into specifics about how that's done and all that includes because we have done that. And again, I will link the first episode as reference. But let's talk about what the GI map test includes.
This has been a game changer, and I'll kind of back up and talk about how I got into the gut health side of things. I think it's funny that I think I'm going to help women with hormones and think that that's just it,
Right? It's all connected.
It's all connected. And the more I dug into hormone health and just overall health, I think the biggest thing to think of is, hormones are more the downstream effect. So you are not doing yourself a service if you're only thinking about the hormones, because those are the effect, not necessarily the cause. So you really have to look upstream at what's causing this, and the root cause of a lot of issues are our gut. Our gut, it's actually in the center of our body, right? It's literally the core of our being, and it is at the root cause of a lot of different diseases and hormonal imbalances that I see. So that's kind of why I got into looking at the gut health stuff. So the GI map is the only test of its kind. There's different tests on the market that test.
So many. I feel like I've done so many. Stool, blood, hair at one point.
There's the hair analysis test too. Those are very interesting too. I haven't dug into them, but I've seen reports and they're really cool.
Saddle up for a night to remember. Mom's Time Out is back. Leave the daily grind in the dust and join us on Wednesday, May 7th at Avenel Vineyards for an unforgettable evening of food, fun, and fabulous company. Whether you're riding solo or rolling in with your crew, you're guaranteed to have a good time. Enjoy an open bar, delicious comfort food, dancing and exciting activities and photo-worthy moments. And in attending, you have the opportunity to support the Marjorie Mason Center, a local nonprofit serving local victims affected by domestic violence. The star of the evening, Jesse James Decker, will be here in California. The singer-songwriter, New York Times bestselling author, and founder of Kittenish and Just Feed Me will be joining us for a VIP meet and greet and to share her unfiltered mom truths on stage, complete with a live Q&A with our guests. Want the VIP experience? Sponsors get exclusive access to the Squeezed Juice VIP Lounge, where you'll meet Jessie up close and personal, take photos with her, and enjoy some premium VIP perks. To top it all off, line dancing and music will keep the party going. So grab your boots, round up your besties, and get ready for one wild ride. Tickets start at $2.99, which are all inclusive of all of the fun activities we just shared: open bar, yummy comfort food, fun activities and photo-worthy moments, and tons of surprises. And sponsorships are available now as well at mumsymedia.com or at mumsymedia on Instagram. Feel free to DM us or email us with questions. We'll see you there. Spring is in full swing, and Dutch Bros is serving up a spring fever dream, a lineup of epic drinks you don't want to miss. Craving something sweet? The birthday cake iced breve, also available as a freeze or shake, is a full-on celebration with cupcake flavors, a soft top, and birthday sprinks. Need an energy boost? The Poppin' Boba Hyper Chrome packs a punch, available as an energy drink or lemonade with bursting boba. And for the chocolate lovers out there, the Brownie Batter Iced Mocha, a freeze or a shake, is rich with dark chocolate goodness in that soft top and brownie pieces on top. These seasonal sips won't be here forever, so don't wait. For all the latest Dutch Bros drinks, follow at Dutch Bros Fresno on Instagram. Coffee cheers to spring vibes. Spring is in full bloom, and so are the San Joaquin Flower Collective's beloved flower pop-ups. Fresh, local blooms straight from our valley's flower farmers, ready to brighten your home, your day, your week. But here's the catch. These pop-ups are seasonal, and so are their blooms. You may have noticed the beautiful florals on some of our podcast episodes if you're watching on YouTube. Those florals are beautifully arranged by local floral designer Darcy Hovsepian of DH Floral, with blooms sourced from the collective. To find out when and where to snag your bouquet, whether you're a florist or just a flower lover, follow at SJ Flower Collective on Instagram for all the latest updates. Because nothing quite says spring like an armful of fresh flowers. I'll see you at the next pop-up.
But yeah, so the GI map, it is a stool test. You collect it at home. Get over it. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It gives us good information. It's
Yes.
worth it, I promise.
Yeah.
So you send in your kit, and then I get a detailed report of a bunch of different bacteria that are living in your gut. And our bacteria in our gut is our ecosystem that drives a lot of necessary processes in our body.
Right?
Yeah, so neurotransmitter production happens a lot in the gut. A great stat: 90% of your serotonin is actually made in your gut. So people with depression, anxiety, seemingly brain issues, it could be the gut because that's where you're making your neurotransmitters. Vitamin synthesis, so just absorbing of nutrients, insulin sensitivity and resistance can kind of stem from gut issues. So it's wild. So I
Wow.
I get really excited about
I mean, it's so true though when you say that. I just don't think that, I don't know. I feel like sometimes specialists, if you're going to a specialist for something, they're kind of just looking at that one something.
Yeah. And it's hard because they are so limited on time that
Yeah,
when
no, I
new
know.
things
I'm not,
come
yeah.
out. Yeah, and it's just it is what it is.
Yeah.
But the GI map, we test different bacteria so we can see if you have overgrowth of opportunistic infections. We can see if, your stomach acid is potentially not as strong as it should be. We can see if you have the parasite. I get asked
Oh
so
my
many questions
gosh.
about
I
parasites
bet.
because there's
You think
so
about like
much.
the worm parasite. At least I do.
Well, and there's all those parasite cleanses that are being advertised on Instagram now, and everybody just wants to jump and buy a parasite cleanse because of their symptoms. And it's like, well, those are actually pretty strong antimicrobials in a lot of those things, and you could be killing off too. It's like,
Like
taking an antibiotic.
positive. Yes.
Yeah, so you could be doing yourself a disservice by just jumping in without testing. Yeah, there's markers for digestive enzymes in there. There's an anti-gliadin antibody test, so we can check to see if you're making antibodies against gluten in your
I was gonna
stool.
say, what about like allergy sensitivity stuff? You can see
Yeah,
that?
yeah. So they're not necessarily, it's not an allergy test. So there's
Yeah.
different tests to
Yeah.
check for food allergies and intolerances. But there are markers on the GI map that can see if you have potentially leaky gut.
Inflammation. Oh.
Leaky gut, which is what has to happen first before you develop these food intolerances and sensitivities.
What medically is leaky gut?
Yeah,
Like, I
that's a
feel like,
good question.
what is it?
So you have a very semi-permeable barrier in your gut lining. So, your intestines, the lining of the gut is single cell layer thick, and it's supposed to be semi-permeable because that's how your body absorbs nutrients from the food that you eat, right? Like otherwise we wouldn't survive.
Yeah.
But it is supposed to be very tight. There's these tight junctions that hold those cells together, and things like stress, consuming too many processed foods, alcohol, too much caffeine. Oh gosh, there's a whole gamut of, toxins,
All the above, like
things, things that you put into your
Lovely.
body
Yes.
willingly, that can affect that lining. And so, there's all these irritants that affect that lining, affect that tight junction, and slowly, that barrier starts to lose integrity. And so you can get these widened gaps, that allows larger molecules to come in. And then I know I'm getting a little bit technical.
No,
but
I mean it's interesting.
yeah, and then underneath that barrier, you have obviously blood. Blood is what brings the nutrients into your body, delivers it all around your body. But in that blood, you have your immune system that's kind of feeling out for foreign invaders, because anytime you're exposed to the outside world, your body's on defense, right? It needs to make sure what's coming in is good.
Yeah.
It's not foreign, it's not an invader. But as those junctions get farther and farther apart, these larger molecules come in and it activates that immune response, because those aren't normal things that should be coming in and out.
Right.
Even if you are eating clean, healthy, but if you have that damage to your gut, you're still, exposing your system to things that it shouldn't be exposed to.
God, I have so many questions, and I'm trying to track the thoughts, and I need to take my notes. Us and our remarkable notes.
I know we could
Okay.
go off lots of tangents.
Honestly, so I don't want to forget though, on that, how long-ish, or maybe you can say it probably is different for every client, but or patient, how long, like let's say your gut's in real bad shape, how long does it take to start the repair of moving towards better gut health? I mean, again, I'm sure depending on your health history and all the things, it's different for everyone, I would imagine, right?
It is. Yeah, it is different for everybody. But the good news is cell turnover in your gut is pretty rapid. So you're constantly turning over cells everywhere in your body at different rates. Your skin cells are pretty fast, and your cells in your gut are pretty fast as well. So the higher the turnover, the quicker repair can be if given the right circumstance. So, and in functional medicine, we talk about the 5 R's of healing the gut. The first step is to remove. So you want to remove any irritants. You want to remove any opportunistic infections that have come in and made their home in your gut that are pushing out your other good bacteria. The second is to Oh, well, now I'm going to lose my train of
I
thought.
know, right?
We have remove, we have reinoculate, repair, and rebalance, but I'm missing one, replace. So remove and replace, I like to use together. Replace meaning your digestive enzymes. So if you are high stress, if you're a fast eater, you're kind of swallowing your food whole, you're not going to be digesting. You're not producing enzymes necessary to break down food into their most basic structure so you can absorb those nutrients. So we replace, a lot of times we'll have to replace those digestive enzymes as we are also working on
Like telling somebody to
adjustments to
eat slower is
slow
like,
down, chew your
wow,
food.
isn't that
Yeah,
interesting?
simple
I would
things that
not
we
even
don't
think
think
the
of.
speed of eating would affect the digestion.
Yeah. Or if you're in a
Makes sense
stressed
though.
state while you're eating. So if you're eating at your
Oh,
desk,
stress. We could do a whole separate episode
I
on
know it
stress
ends up
management.
taking over everything.
It
Yeah.
does.
Unfortunately, it is just
It
kind of our
really
culture and lifestyle.
does.
Yeah.
And then you give your clients, sort of tools or suggestions to manage stress, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of very simple, it has to be approachable or else you're not going to do it.
Right? You will stress about not being able to do it. You'll almost set
Yeah.
yourself up for failure a little bit, right? Which is
Yeah.
worse, I feel.
You give yourself so much to do and it ends up stressing you. Even though you're trying to do it
Mm-hmm.
for good, I think balance is still the number one takeaway with all
Mm-hmm.
of it. So yeah, even if you
Mm-hmm.
can't, it's better to do small things than to try to do everything perfectly.
I get
'Cause it's
that.
just not
I get
realistic.
that. And that sets your clients up, yourself up for like, okay, I can do this.
Yeah.
Achievable.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you mentioned you started with hormone health and you're like, oh man, we're touching on so many other things here.
I went down rabbit holes. Yeah.
I
Opened up
bet.
bags of worms.
I bet. I bet. Yeah, wow. I can't even imagine. How does well, let me phrase this question right. I have this written down. How does an imbalanced gut microbiome influence hormonal irregularities, I guess, or
Yeah.
hormones in general?
Right.
Is
Because
that the
it
proper way to ask it? Do you know what I'm getting
I
at?
totally understand what
Okay.
you're saying. So we talk about all these different axes in the body. There's the gut brain axis, there's the gut skin axis, and then there is this gut endocrine neurological connection as well that gets very, very complicated. And of course, I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of everything, but you can dive deep down into a lot of research. But to simplify, your gut can affect your hormones in several different ways. So for one, your microbiome, you have this collection of bacteria, I guess for lack of a better word, that's called your estrobolome, and that is involved in it can manipulate your estrogen levels. So if you're I'll have to back up a little bit. So your estrogen gets detoxed from your liver to get packaged up to be excreted from the body via your bowels. So, you go through that phase 1, phase 2 detoxification in the liver. You've got this pretty little package of estrogen ready to be dropped off at your nearest toilet. And if in the gut, if your estrobolome is off, or if you have any sort of dysbiosis or dysfunctioning gut issues, that estrogen can be unpackaged and reabsorbed into the bloodstream, leading to higher estrogen levels overall. But just these packaged up estrogens that are trying to get out of your body are more harmful than the original estrogen itself. So that's where we get into a lot of issues with overgrowth of tissues and even risk of breast cancer. And other, any DNA damage.
I mean, literally everything you just said connects all the things.
Yeah, it's a full circle. Yeah, everything is. So that's just one. The other connection there too is with leaky gut. So leaky gut can trigger, because of your immune system that I was talking about, that can trigger a bunch of different autoimmune conditions, thyroid being one of the most common things I see. And then your thyroid hormone also communicates with your cortisol, your insulin. It's all connected there. So an imbalance in the thyroid hormone can cross over and cause imbalance in other hormones as well. And just general inflammation as well. So if you
Yeah.
have if you have I say dysbiosis. What I mean by that is if you have an imbalance of bacteria in the gut or an overgrowth of those bad bugs that we talk about, that can drive inflammation. And inflammation, the more I'm learning, inflammation is really the root cause of a lot of preventable chronic diseases. So when we drive that inflammation with the gut, that offsets everything. Inflammation drives more cortisol, which drives more inflammation. And we talked a lot about cortisol and its effect on hormones in the last episode. So I don't need to go down that road, but
I'm literally taking notes. This is fascinating. Okay, well, there's a lot of information out there.
there is.
How overwhelming. I mean, obviously that's why
Yeah.
they look to professionals like yourself to be able to like say, Jenny, like what's
Yeah.
good for me?
Mm-hmm.
What's right for my health history? But you said inflammation and it just triggered the whole, there's just a lot of information out there about like anti-inflammatory diets and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that's all like you can't, it's all for the positive, right? Like are there any sort of misconceptions or myths about gut health or as it relates to hormone health that you're like, yeah, people think this, but it's really not the case. You know what I'm saying? Probably a
Yeah.
lot, actually.
There are, and one of the things that comes to mind is when people think gut health, they think they have to have those GI symptoms to think they have
True.
a problem with gut health.
That is true.
Which that's one of the most common misconceptions. It's like, oh no, I don't have like because when I'm doing free consults and talking about what packages, they're like, oh, I don't have any gut issues. I'm like, well, do you have brain fog? Do you have anxiety? Do you have depression? Do you have a loss of concentration? I start going through all these. Do you have autoimmunity or any,
All of it.
joint pain, skin. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about skin. It's like the window to your gut. So acne, dry skin, rashes, eczema is huge. Yeah.
Well, isn't that autoimmune, like sort of anti-inflammatory stuff? Wow.
Yeah. So that all links
inflammatory.
back to the gut. So that's one. And then, there are a lot of misconceptions about protein. I love a good high protein diet. I generally do recommend having a balanced amount of protein and fats with your carbs. But people get so focused on protein that they end up using a lot of products with additives or things that are actually harming your gut. So if you're doing a lot of protein powders, a lot of those like pre-made shakes, that's actually can be causing more issues in the gut.
Oh, Jenny, after your event at Blue Moon, she had an event recently, collab event with Blue Moon. It was on International Women's Day. It was amazing.
Great.
It was so great.
It was really nice.
Right? It was all about self-love and hormone health and packed house full of women asking really great questions. And one of the questions was about protein. Yeah, you did. I immediately meal prepped the next day, which
I saw that.
never done. You'd be so proud. And I'm actually eating the meals. I'm not straying
Yeah.
Nicole and I did it together. It was really fun.
So awesome.
And really great. Like, and there is something, this sounds like, okay, duh, right? But there is something to be said about eating whole foods, sticking to the basics.
Yeah.
And truly, I do feel like I don't know, even with the time change, I do feel like my energy is like better than it probably would be if I was.
Yeah. So you do have more balanced energy when you're getting that good ratio of protein, fats, and carbs. And insulin is a huge thing that gets helped out when you're doing that regularly. So insulin can be a huge driver of hormone balance elsewhere in the body. It's one of those, I have this like hormone hierarchy, and cortisol and insulin are kind of at the top of that hierarchy. And so, if you're eating straight carbs or, more carb forward diet, you're spiking your blood sugars, which then your insulin has to spike on top of that. So you get this very like up and down rhythm of your blood sugar and insulin, and you get rises and falls. And every time your insulin spikes and then your blood sugar drops, you get those cravings for more carbs. So it's just kind of this vicious cycle. Whereas if you eat foods, and this does also go back to the gut, having a healthy microbiome helps your insulin sensitivity. But if you're eating, a good combination of protein and fat with your carbohydrates, you're slowing that uptake of your blood sugar, so your blood sugar doesn't spike as fast. So then you're not getting that huge insulin response that then crashes your blood sugar. So you're
it
just
makes
more
so much sense when you
energy's
say
more
that.
stable throughout the day.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. One of the questions I was going to ask you too at the event that just made me think of it is we think metabolism is linked to hormones, aging.
Mm-hmm.
And that probably is the case. So excuse my ignorance. You're probably like, there's so many things wrong with what you just said.
No, 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 no.
I'm talking like a
You're making
general
sense.
person,
Yeah.
not in the
Yeah.
medical field.
Oh, yeah.
But in general, right? As women, I think we think, oh, my metabolism is slowing down.
Yeah.
And that isn't always the case, right?
Right. I mean, it does slow. So
It does, like, biologically, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
genetics, I think you've told me, play a factor
It
in that,
can,
right?
and I don't like to place too much on genetics because it doesn't have to express. We
Okay.
think genetics are just like you're just destined to be this way because of genetics, and that's
Yes.
absolutely not the case. So everything you're putting in, all the inputs that you put into your body are telling your genes how to express themselves. So if all your inputs are healthy, good, positive, this even goes to like mindset and thoughts too. You
bet.
can change your genetics based on mindset and thinking positively. It's wild. But yeah, that's more the inputs that come in that do change that gene expression. But with aging, things do start to slow down. So you need to be more intentional with what you're doing and how you're going to combat those things. Something like strength training, building lean muscle as you age. We lose 3 to 8% of our muscle mass every decade after 30, for women specifically. So think about, say you're losing 5% of your muscle mass every decade. And that really is a strong determinant of your metabolism too. You burn more calories at rest when you have more dense muscle tissue. It takes more energy to upkeep your muscles than if you didn't have that. So yeah, that's one thing that you can do to help boost your metabolism as you age, is to continue working out, especially strength training in particular.
Well, and I feel like that naturally helps with stress, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that was
yeah.
going to be my next question. I love your approach to how you care for your clients because it is so multifaceted. It's very lifestyle driven, obviously holistic, functional medicine forward. So you're looking at things like, hey, Ray, I'm just using this as an example, even though it's probably true. You live a very stressful situation. Here are the things that I think you should consider doing
Yeah.
to manage your stress. Or, like you said, strength training to boost certain things. So,
Yeah.
can you give listeners, viewers, examples of some of the sort of suggestions you give your clients
Yeah, and it's
that are outside of what you might get at like a more traditional, you know what I'm saying?
right. Yeah, and it's hard because everybody is so unique. But
Totally.
for instance, if I know somebody has cortisol, right? Cortisol issues, say high cortisol, and their adrenals are like sputtering on, it's not
Yeah, that's a good word for
doing
it.
yeah, they're sputtering out. They're spiraling.
Yeah.
I won't recommend doing, a lot of high intensity interval training type workouts, or, no intense cardio or running, maybe switch to walking. And I do see this a lot where women are like, I'm doing so much. I'm on a 1,200 calorie diet. I'm working out, an hour a day. And I'm like, well, you're doing too much, and it's actually doing yourself a disservice. So that's something that I think a lot of general practitioners don't think of, because they're like, well, are you dieting? Are you exercising? I don't know what's happening, but it's actually worsening the problem, because the problem is you're already under too much stress, and then you're stressing your body more by working out too hard and starving yourself. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But thinking to your point that they're doing all the healthy things that they're supposed to be doing. You're a runner. Is running part of like what you would recommend for yourself? Or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I am better at listening to my own advice. I
Right?
have cut my running, and it's funny. I have my body comp analysis that I'm needing to post and show the difference. But I ran a full marathon a year ago, and I did my body comp analysis right after that. And I'll have to get my labs and everything to show like my inflammatory markers were high. I did a gut test that year, and it was like not as good as I thought it would be, considering how much I put into my practice.
Yes.
And then I have comparison ones of after a year of just focusing on strength training. I still run maybe like 40 minutes, 45 minutes a week. But compared to like running 45 minutes almost every day, that's a huge cut.
Dang. Yeah.
So just switching from running to walking and focusing more on lifting heavy, really trying to gain muscle.
I love it.
It's changed everything. My labs, my body composition, my gut, my GI
Crazy.
map has changed. It's
I
wild.
love how you're so into like all the research and diving into all of it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't want to know, but I
I
love it.
scare you.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna
We're
drop
just
this
gonna,
here.
leave that for you to look at when you're ready.
Yeah.
But one thing you posted about recently, which I do think affects gut health, obviously, is not drinking.
Oh, yes.
Can we talk about that? And
would love
here's
to.
all, obviously, everything you're going to share is based on your personal experience,
Yeah.
right? Like everything. But I'm seeing this huge wave, and I wish I should have prepared better stats for this. But I've seen a lot of stats recently that there's a significant decline in the 21 plus gen now that are not drinking anymore.
Drinking's the new smoking.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
I
wild.
feel that. And they're calling it, there's probably multiple terms, but this whole like sober curious lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
Or just, I don't even know if that's the right term. It's so fascinating to me.
Yeah, and it's something that's so ingrained in our culture that it gets sensitive, and I
Totally.
almost, I mean, it's definitely a personal choice.
100%.
I've been sober curious for years. I've gone, I'll do months here and there. One year I did like a 3-month stint, and it's always been something that's been on my heart, curious, but
Yes.
it's so hard to break away from what we're so ingrained in.
Well,
And
it's a social thing too,
it's
right?
social, it's connection, it's all these things that are very helpful for our health, but we're doing it in such an unhealthy way. And so yeah, and I've had a couple friends tell me like this feels different this time because they've seen me go through my roller coasters and ups and
No,
downs.
totally. And Jenny,
Yeah.
share about your Aura Ring, how you
Oh yeah, the stress
rebounded.
resistance.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was shocked by that.
I am still shocked by it. It is insane. So Aura has a measurement of stress resilience that takes several factors into mind. Mostly, your nighttime recovery, your daytime stress load, your activity, and it puts together this graded, I guess tiered how well you
You like respond
to stress.
Yes.
So it's considered, stress resilience. And it goes, I forget what the measurements are, but the top is like excellent, and
It
then
was
it's
like,
strong, and then there's like fair, and then
good, fair, whatever. Yeah.
so it tiers down. And I went like through the holidays, rock bottom. Like my November, December, I am rock bottom, and just within a month, I spiked straight up to like excellent.
Meaning
It's
like
wild.
you had a very challenging time, like managing, rebounding from stressful situations. It's kind of
Yes.
how I took it,
Well,
right?
I can explain why. So, if you have, holiday season, right? We're stressed. There's a lot more going on. There's a lot more events. There's a lot to do. And then there's a lot more drinking. So at night, even if you just have a glass of wine or a cocktail at night, you're not getting as good of rest as you would without the alcohol.
100%.
And I think we all feel that, but it's wild when you get the ring to actually see the data. Like your resting heart rate doesn't go down. You don't hit the right sleep stages through your sleep. So that limits your recovery. So you're already having the high stress days, and then you're limiting your recovery at night. And then on the weekends, you're going to the holiday parties and brunch with your girlfriends and just like drinking through 3 days out of
Yeah.
just nonstop.
Oh, yeah.
It's nonstop. So, you're stressing your body, and then because of the alcohol, you're not
Makes
recovering.
so much sense.
Yeah, yeah.
And that can't be good for your gut health.
No.
I mean, there's no alcohol that's like good for your gut health, right?
No. And some people say like, the fermented.
Not good, but you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah,
not
like
bad, I guess.
yes, yeah, like the fermented alcohol, and
Right.
they want to say.
I
that
mean, some are worse
fermentation's
than
good.
others.
Right.
Some are better than others.
Yeah, the sugar is really harmful as well. So
Yeah.
if you do choose to drink, try to go with the lower sugar
Low
mixers and
sugar,
stuff. But
okay.
any amount of alcohol, every time you have, oh my gosh, I saw another stat the other day. It was like for each drink, your cortisol stays elevated for 24 hours.
Dang.
So if you have one drink a night, you are perpetually increasing your cortisol day after day after day.
Wow.
So yeah, and I don't want to preach too hard on the not drinking because I feel like I'm going to turn a lot of ears off because people are
No,
just so
and
resistant to it. But
that, and also it's such a personal choice,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
I'm kind of,
yeah,
I just like learning. I
yeah.
like learning like the benefits of it. I think it's interesting. Like stats are showing a significant decline in
Mhm.
drinking in younger ages, which is just very fascinating to
And
me. I
it's
don't know.
impressive. I'm glad that they're
I
creating this
know.
culture shift
I
that,
agree. And I feel
yeah,
like, and this is a very generalized term, this is not for all students in college, but when I was in college, I was not health conscious.
no,
I
yeah,
definitely was not sober curious. Like,
no,
and I look at the girls and
yeah,
people in college now, and they're so health like and
yeah.
wellness focused.
They've
And
got it
it's
way better.
almost like this, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like dang, if only.
I
Now we're
know.
all trying to repair the
Yeah.
I know I am the
I
damage.
know. I might not. Now thinking about, it, I'm like, I might not have clients in like 20 years from now because they're all doing
I could
everything
teach
already.
you a thing. No, I'm
Yeah, I
joking.
know.
I'm
Seriously.
joking. Can you share, I mean, obviously without diving into personal info and all the things, some, and maybe an example of like a success story of something that,
Yeah.
we've talked about the sort of functional ways, lifestyle choices you support your clients with in their
Mhm.
treatment plans, essentially. Do you mind sharing like an example of a success story? It doesn't have to be like in full, but just maybe something that comes to mind that,
Yeah, I have, I mean, a lot of cases. I haven't had anybody who hasn't gotten benefit from something we've
which
done,
is amazing.
Even if we hit like a plateau, there's always
Hmm.
something else I can research and find to order. There's more
To
testing, there's
improve,
more
right?
things. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's this health optimization too, where even if you're healthy, you can always optimize more. It's a never ending,
Hmm.
um, oh, I
Yeah,
don't have the
no,
word,
it's
but
true. Yeah.
you can keep
You can
going.
constantly improve in
Yeah.
any aspect.
But one specific case that comes to mind, a client kind of mostly thinking that hormone issues were the root of problems and, mostly a lot of stress, like
Mhm.
not being able to stay asleep fully throughout the night, waking up at
Mhm.
like 3 to 4 a.m. every night.
Mhm.
So really thinking that stress and hormones were the drivers of a lot of her symptoms. But we did a GI map and there was a lot of dysbiosis. So and I'll try to
Yeah,
keep
what
it
is that? What
short.
is
So
dysbiosis?
it's an imbalance of bacteria in the gut. And she also had H. pylori present, which
Mhm.
I guess we have as all the time we want.
Yeah, we
we can
do.
we can dive into H. pylori. So H. pylori
Yes.
is a bacteria that lives in your stomach,
Mhm.
and it raises the acidity of your stomach. So think about, and acidity is kind of backwards. So the lower the pH is, the more acidic something is. Do you remember the whole
Mhm.
pH score? And
Yes.
the higher the pH is, the more basic
Mhm.
your stomach acid is. So when H. pylori is in the gut, the way that it survives in the stomach is to create this barrier around it that actually raises the pH of your stomach. So you're essentially, and it kind of shuts off your body's production of stomach acid. So when that happens, when your stomach acid is shut off, you're not creating this acidic environment. So when you eat and drink and touch things and things get in your mouth, like your
Yeah.
stomach acid is supposed to be there to help kill off those harmful pathogens and bacteria. So when your acidity is off, those pathogens can get in. They can go down deeper into your intestines, and they can overgrow and keep breeding. And what that does then is it shoves out. Everything's competing for space in there. So the more these opportunistic bad bugs grow, the more you're pushing out your body's population of good bacteria.
Mhm.
So looking at these report, I'm like, well, there's and she was also on the proton pump inhibitors for the H. pylori. So
Wow.
when you have H. pylori and when you have reflux, they're also giving you on top of that medication to further block your stomach acid because it treats your symptoms, but
Right.
it's further raising that pH of your stomach.
Oh my
It
gosh.
perpetuates the
Right?
problem. It's a mess.
Yes.
So in her case, and then her thyroid hormones, she did have high cortisol as well. And her thyroid test, she had a high level of reverse T3, which I do see commonly in women who are under a lot of stress. It's your body's way of trying to go into survival mode, suppress your metabolism a little bit, slow things down so that you can survive a stressful situation.
Lovely.
So yeah, her reverse T3 was high. So what we did was, first step, obviously a lot of like lifestyle, a lot of stress management techniques, slowing down, chewing your food thoroughly, all that. But I did put her on a good antimicrobial. We replaced the digestive enzymes. And then after that, that was kind of phase 1. We do that for about 4 weeks. And then we get into phase 2 where we start to re-inoculate those good bugs that we want in your gut. So those healthy probiotics, along with repair. So L-glutamine or other things that really help build that lining of the gut and repair the gut lining. And then after that, it's rebalance. So, rebalancing your whole lifestyle, a lot of stress management, like I talked about. We added in some adaptogens to help with the cortisol. And while we didn't retest the GI map and the Dutch test are more expensive tests, so I leave it up to my clients if they want to repeat them. But we did another blood panel, which repeat blood panels are included in my annual package, so we can repeat the blood. And her reverse T3 went down too, so
That's
that was
amazing.
yeah. And it's that inflammation that the gut causes, which drives that cortisol, which drives that thyroid dysfunction. And yeah, we were able to get results just focusing on gut health when initially we thought it was a hormone problem.
Hormone. Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Jenny, so many questions from what you just said. Okay, let's talk. You mentioned probiotics. What are your thoughts on, because here's my thing. I live by them, use them, and actually I'm thinking I need to I'm questioning everything. We need to work again. But there's so many.
Yeah.
There are so many.
Yeah.
Like anything, right? There's like some are better than others, some are more pure than others, but like how does one even know what probiotic is right for them? Obviously, coming to you is a huge start, but like in general, for somebody who may or may not consider taking probiotics, do you have like suggestions or like I don't even know, like what are your thoughts on them?
So they're not necessary. They can be helpful,
Okay.
and you shouldn't really ever be on the same one for too long. So
Okay.
diversity is your gut's best friend, and you can manipulate your bacteria in your gut by things other than taking probiotics. So prebiotics for one. So what you're feeding the bacteria in your gut. So if you're eating a lot of processed foods, you're feeding the bad bacteria. Bad bacteria love that processed junk. So if you're wanting to manipulate the bacteria in your gut, picking certain foods that feed certain bacteria will help those bacteria thrive.
Makes sense.
And will starve off the bad bacteria.
Yeah.
So that's one thing you can do besides jumping into probiotics. Fermented foods is also another good choice. It does increase diversity into your gut by switching different fermented foods around. Also, just eating kind of a variety of foods, more diversity in your food choices, healthy food choices, right? Like diverse fruits and vegetables will feed your gut. But yeah, the probiotics, I think. I do recommend testing. You want to know what you're low in before you start.
Right. Just go take something off the shelf.
Yeah,
you know, they say, gosh, what do they say? There's all these stats on the bottles. It's like 5,000.
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah,
I don't
5 billion, yeah, 10 billion. I don't
Yes, it's
know.
like, I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah, and the
And
strains.
they're not cheap.
No, and yeah. So if we do the GI map, we look at those commensals. They're called commensals. They're your good bugs. We look at those and we can say, oh wow, you have way too much Bacteroidetes. And if you look at your probiotic bottle, it's like, oh, that's the only strain in this. So your commensals are like Goldilocks. You don't want them too high. You don't want them too low. You want them just right. So if you are overpopulating some of these even good microbes, too much can be a bad thing. So testing, getting on the right strains specific to what you need, and then alternating regularly, or just using them for a short period of time and then letting your diet take over what bugs you're feeding.
I'm literally taking notes. This is amazing. Okay, I think we should do a series, and I'm totally going off the cuff here. But I think this is good because it encompasses a lot of my questions. So let's do the series of gut health and. Okay, so we've talked a lot about gut health and hormones.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things that specifically I like to like in gut health and probiotics, gut health and protein. We've talked about all those things. Gut health and pregnancy. We've talked about this offline that I've had friends whose gut issues, I guess, I don't know how else to say it, sort of makeup have changed significantly after having kids. For example, prior to kids, they could eat anything they wanted. Their tummy could handle it, or at least they thought it could.
Yeah.
And after having kids, one person in particular comes to mind. She has celiac disease now. She is highly allergic to gluten, cannot tolerate it. And the only sort of thing that she can track it to is like pre and post having children.
Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah.
we talked about this a little bit on the last episode, and it's relevant here is that the pregnancy being a trigger. So any stressors are a trigger. And then you have the genetic makeup, which is the loaded gun, right? But you have to have something pull the trigger, which would be the pregnancy or any other stressful event. So something like that, like celiac is a true autoimmune disease. It typically does show up younger. But, you know, if she had the genetic predisposition for celiacs and then the stress of pregnancy triggered that autoimmunity, that could make sense. If it's not true celiac disease, not the autoimmune disease, celiac
Right.
disease.
It might be like a sensitivity, right? Like we
Yeah.
get different, to your point.
It could be like gluten the gluten stuff gets complicated. There's like gluten intolerance or just gluten sensitivity or gluten allergy. There's difference between wheat allergy and gluten allergy. So that's a whole.
But not everybody knows that.
No, and that can get very complex and take forever to get through. But in general, it also goes back to that leaky gut component where
Makes sense,
the stress of pregnancy can weaken that barrier, and then you're introducing those molecules that your immune system hasn't seen before, and then that can trigger a response to gluten just because it's creating
It makes
antibodies
so much
against
sense
gluten.
when you put it that way. We think like, oh, after having children, we're just gonna be like we were before. LOL. No. Hard no.
It's a new normal.
It's a new normal. Okay, what about gut health and your heart?
Oh, that's a good one. I don't have a lot
Because
off
I
the
feel
top
like,
of my
well,
head
I
there.
think in general, heart healthy diets are very much comprised of like, I'd imagine anti-inflammatory.
Yeah, actually, I lie. I do. I have a client who I've worked with. She wound up in the emergency room after New Year's, like the week after New Year's, because she had these heart palpitations that wouldn't go away. So, and we did a GI map. Before I even did the GI map, I gave her some electrolytes, magnesium, vitamins. So, I guess to back up, your gut's linked to everything, but in particular, the vitamins that you absorb in your gut help all cellular functions over your body. So if you're having like heart palpitations or irregular rhythms in your heart, it could be something as simple as a nutrient deficiency. So, I gave her some electrolytes, put her on a good liquid multivitamin to make sure her gut could absorb it. And within a week, she was feeling better,
See, and like heart disease, isn't that like the leading killer in women or something? Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to butcher that stat. I'll actually find it.
No, I'm
but
pretty
it's
sure that's
up
right,
there, right?
Yeah. And we all think like breast cancer for women, but it's heart disease.
Yeah.
And so again, it goes back to inflammation. Inflammation drives all of these chronic conditions. And there's so much research now coming out about cholesterol. We used to think cholesterol was the cause for heart disease, and everyone's trying to keep their cholesterol levels so low. But cholesterol is the effect of inflammation. So cholesterol raises when there's chronic inflammation. It's actually a helpful tool for your body, but if you have too much inflammation chronically over time, then that's when the cholesterol can start to, cause plaques and negative things in your blood vessels. But it starts with inflammation. So yeah, getting your gut checked out, making sure you're not having anything that's putting you at risk for this inflammation.
Wow. Just
yeah.
sounds like it all goes back to your gut.
It's what it feels like. Yeah,
I mean, it does,
until we
right?
do more research and find deeper links there, that's
Hmm.
what all of my research and practice has led to.
So, speaking of that, what sort of research are you seeing or emerging trends, if you will, in the gut health space that you're like most excited about
Yeah,
or
just
hopeful about?
more tools in looking at and dissecting out these bacteria and finding out specific strains of bacteria that target different things. There's like fecal transplants that are like actually ridding. I think there's some research about like autism and fecal transplants that's actually
Wow.
very, very cool. I think peptides are exciting, but I always say you can't out supplement bad lifestyle. And I think peptides can be a really cool tool for optimization, but it's not going to fix the root. I think the
Hmm.
basics are still where you want to stick, but
I like that. You can't out supplement
bad
bad
lifestyle.
lifestyle.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
I do feel like, we live in a world, especially through social, where it's overwhelming. It's too much. It's like, yeah, oh, I'm low on protein. I'll take that protein
Yeah.
powder. Oh, I need electrolytes. I'll take that electrolyte powder
Hmm.
or whatever. The list goes on.
Yeah.
So, what would
So
you,
much.
I mean, I think everything you say, at least from knowing you and working with you, is like leaning back to whole foods,
Yeah.
right?
Eat real food.
Eat real food. What a concept,
I
people.
know, I know.
But
And
it's
if when you
true.
eat real food, people are like, "What's wrong with you? Are you on a diet?" It's so
Isn't
backwards.
that so true?
Yeah. Like, no, I'm just eating real
I
food.
posted about our meal prep and somebody's like, "What are you doing that for?" And I'm like, life." Like
Live.
and also it's nice
Uh,
having your meals done
yeah, yeah.
ahead of time. It's
It's
amazing.
such a stress reliever, and you feel so accomplished when you do it.
Oh my gosh,
It can
unreal.
be daunting. I did post something the other day
You
that
did.
that
I
got a lot
know.
of traction. It's like if you don't have the capacity, if it seems too daunting, commit to like 3 home-cooked meals a week and just cook double to have
Which
leftovers.
is
It
genius.
can be
Oh my God,
simple.
Jenny, so many lessons learned.
Simplify it.
I know you don't even
Um,
I'm embarrassed to admit how many individual meals we prepped.
yeah,
We
yeah,
needed, to your point, just make 3 and just make extra.
yep, yeah.
Great idea.
Yeah, and you do have to kind of get used to eating. I know a lot of people are like, I don't like eating the same thing. Okay, well then keep doing the same thing and don't get results. I don't know what to
Right?
tell you.
And also, I weirdly like love eating the same thing. I'm
It's
such a
yeah,
creature of habit. I could eat the same thing every day forever.
but keep it diverse
Exactly.
for your
But
gut.
now I'm like taking that. You're like, yeah, but don't.
Just try to eat like a new fruit and vegetable here and there. And just sprinkle it in.
Sprinkle it in. I've actually been doing that with the kids. If I take one of the girls with me, or even MJ
Oh
too,
yeah.
I tell them to pick out a new fruit or veggie in the produce
Yeah.
section, and they do it.
My kids love doing that. During the
Yeah,
summer when they're home, I take them to the store every
that's
week. And
cute.
it's like
Yeah.
we did this whole rainbow thing last summer
So
where
did
they
we.
had to pick a fruit or
Yes.
vegetable in every color of the rainbow. And then we
Yes.
look, and ChatGPT is so great. We can just tell Chat what we got from the store and it tells us different
Tells you.
ideas.
Yes, cute.
And so they're cute. They get into that.
It's adorable.
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, and your girls see. I think lead by example, right? They're
Yeah.
seeing you do it, seeing Brian do it. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is the way.
Yeah. And kids will always fight what you try to do, so you can't force it down their throat. I think there's only so much you can
Yeah.
do.
Be
Um,
patient.
yeah.
Present. They
Yeah.
say present, right?
Give
Keep
them all the
presenting.
information and yeah.
Yes.
Hmm.
So, for women that are interested in learning more, potentially getting a consult from you, wanting to work with you on one of your annual plans, obviously you have your office now, but what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
I think my website's pretty good for that. I do like to do the free consults before. I have had people just dive right in and buy a package because
They
they've
know they need
with their
help.
friends and
Yeah.
that's what they want. So you can just book a package online too. But if you have more questions or want to talk to me directly before you sign up for a package, the free consults, and there's links to that on my
Hmm.
Instagram. The link to do the free consults on my website too. And I'm pretty sure I'm very transparent on my website.
You
Everything
are.
you get in the packages is listed on there.
Hmm.
I prices, everything is listed, so you know what you're getting when you
Hmm.
read my website.
I appreciate that very much. The transparency. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
this is it. this is what it's included. Here's the price. Here's what's included. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And you've built a really great community of women. I mean, I know I joined through the group sort of model, and you're leaning towards one-on-one more now, but I think you're doing a great job of hosting events and doing sort of collaboration events with those in our community, which I think has been really great to connect with other women of all ages, of all stages that are just like wanting to better themselves. Like, how refreshing is that?
Yeah. And it is easier to do it together and to know that you're not alone.
The accountability, for sure.
Yeah, 100% there.
Literally, I'm telling you, your event inspired me to meal prep, and then I'm like, Nicole, we got to do it together. I need accountability here. And she wanted to come to your event, but she had a shower. But anyway, it was like, I love the accountability.
Yeah. Well, and surround yourself with people who you want to be like, right? So
who lift you up, right?
Yeah.
What's that silly, cheesy phrase that I love? Strong women lift each other up.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, that's true.
Yeah.
So
100%.
Jenny, this was so fun.
Yeah.
I feel like we could have talked all day. I didn't grill you too much, did I?
No. I'm sure my brain will be numb after this, but no, it's fine. I'll go take my nap.
Exactly. Your little reset.
My meditation.
Yes. Cheers, friends. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Ray.
So great. Thanks for listening. Feel free to rate and review this episode here and connect with us on Instagram if you have any thoughts, questions, or any guest suggestions. Thanks.